clerk will please unlock the machine. All members, please record your presence by pressing the green button. All members, please record your attendance. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 67 members present. There is a quorum. All rise for the invocation to be delivered by Representative Tansey from the fine town of Narragansett, who will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Tansey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Almighty God, we come to you asking for your blessing as we gather together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand as we strive to make our state a great place for all of our citizens. Amen. I pledge allegiance
Thank you, Representative. Next order of business is the approval of the journal. Is there any objection to the approval of the journal of the previous legislative day? Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Communications. Clerk, do we have any communications?
Speaker.
Please read and place on file.
Representative Patricia Morgan is unable to attend session today, Thursday, January 4th, 2024. Representative Karen Alzate is unable to attend session today, Thursday, January 4th, 2024.
Thank you. And I know everybody's been waiting for this next one. It is time for new business. So is there any new business? Chairman Azanaro with new business. Chairman McNamara with new business. Representative Shawcross Smith with new business. Chairwoman Speaking with new business. Representative Spears with new business. Representative Morales with new business. Chairman Corvesi with new business. Leader Brien with new business. Chairwoman Donovan with new business. Chairwoman McEntee with new business. Representative Tansey with new business. Any other new business? Representative Potter, you have new business? No, no pass. Okay, we can go back to new business. There is no calendar for today. Next, we are on to announcements and introductions. I will first go to Speaker Pro Tem Brian Patrick Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just a moment.
I have a House resolution that's to congratulate the Honorable Charles T. Knowles on his retirement after more than 30 years of service and distinguished service, not only to the state, but also as a former state legislator. I have a resolution which I'd like to introduce, but at the same time, Mr. Speaker, I did want to say a few words. So Charlie and I were both elected in November of 1988. And we started serving together on January the 3rd, 1989. And I remember that date because that was my birthday. The first time I was ever sworn in was my birthday. And Charlie had the good fortune of being elected to many terms, serving the good people of Narragansett. He served as a former chair of Judiciary here. And along with that, he had a very distinguished career in the National Guard. Charlie, after that, when I became chair of the Corporations Committee, I was able to bring Charlie on board, and he became the legal counsel for House Corporations. And now Charlie has decided, after all these years, he's ready to spend a little bit more time. Charlie and his wife, Sandy. Sandy is a former state representative as well. reside in Wickford, Rhode Island, in North Kingstown, I believe, in Chairman Craven's district. So, Mr. Speaker, with that said, I'd like to introduce this resolution and have it read at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Chairman. Please send it up, and we will read it now, Clerk. Representative Knowles, Chairman Knowles, I remember you when you were chairman. Charlie, this has been an honor to work with you and to know you. And on behalf of all the people in this chamber who are here today and who also have preceded all of us, thank you. And the people of Rhode Island, obviously the people of North Kingstown, thank you for your service to our state. As an attorney, as a state representative. Thank you. Clerk, please read.
House resolution congratulating the Honorable Charles Knowles on his retirement after more than 30 years of dedicated and distinguished service to the citizens of Rhode Island. Whereas the Honorable Charles Knowles was born in Providence, he graduated from St. Andrews High School in 1967 and the University of Rhode Island in 1971, where he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army upon graduation. He proceeded to serve in the 173rd Airborne Brigade in the 101st Airborne Division during the Vietnam War, serving our nation with honor and distinction. In 1977, he received a law degree from the New England School of Law. And whereas in 1974, Mr. Knowles joined the Rhode Island Army National Guard and graduated from the Active Duty Special Forces course at Fort Bragg in 1975. His distinguished 30-year military career included attaining the rank of full colonel, graduating from the United States Army War College, serving as the Brigade Commander of Troop Command Special Forces, and as the commander of the 1021st Civil Airs Group, and accomplishing 135 jumps as a paratrooper. And whereas Charles Knowles has received numerous honors and commendations in recognition of his meritorious military career, including being awarded the Legion of Merit, the Meritorious Service Medal with 2 clusters, the Rhode Island Star, the Master Parachutist Badge, and the Pathfinder Badge. And whereas, following his military career and graduation from law school, Charles Knowles embarked on a successful and thriving legal practice. A pillar of the community in Narragansett, Mr. Knowles' legal acumen was highly regarded within the community, and his legal services were sought after by many clients. And whereas Mr. Knowles' life path eventually led to a career in public service that would span more than 40 years, he served as the secretary of the Narragansett Democratic Town Committee from 1982 to 1992, and on the Narragansett Zoning Board from 1982 to 1984, and again from 1986 to 1990. And whereas in 1988, Charles Knowles was elected to serve in the Rhode Island House of Representatives, a seat he would hold for 8 years from 1989 to 1997, representing citizens from Narragansett and South Kingstown. From his first days in the House, Mr. Knowles impressed his colleagues and the leadership with his vast knowledge of legal and constitutional issues, and his honesty, directness, preparedness, and forthrightness. Thanks to these attributes, he was chosen by the leadership to serve as the chairman of the powerful House Judiciary Committee, a title he held for 4 years. Under his leadership and guidance, several significant landmark pieces of legislation were passed, all of which redounded to the great benefit of the people of Rhode Island, including the judicial merit selection, the anti-revolving door law, constitutional reorganization of the Rhode Island State Legislature, and pension reform. And whereas for the last 24 years, Mr. Knowles has served as the legal counsel to the House Corporations Committee, where his wisdom and wise advice has been highly valued by all members of the committee, and his meticulous attention to detail, coordinating copious bundles of legislation, and working long hours with immense aptitude and ability has been indispensable. Mr. Knowles also served as the legal counsel for the Oversight and Veterans Affairs Committee and has always worked diligently and forthrightly to serve the members of the Rhode Island House, as well as the citizens of Rhode Island. And whereas Charles Knowles has always been actively involved in many Rhode Island civil and charitable affairs, including serving as a member of the Rhode Island Bay Association, Save the Bay, Common Cause, the ACLU, the American Legion, the NRA, the Civil War Preservation Trust, and a founding sponsor of the National Museum of the United States Army. He also coached Little League, South County Youth Soccer, Narragansett Recreational League Basketball, and as an assistant scoutmaster of Troop 2, as well as numerous other community groups and associations. And whereas in his free time, Charles Knowles is a passionate Civil War historian and lecturer, enthusiastic gardener, avid Red Sox fan, and entertaining writer and correspondent. And whereas Charles Knowles is the proud and beloved father to his children, Justin and Jennifer, and the devoted husband to his wife, the Honorable Sandra Knowles, a former state representative from Foster. Whereas Charles Knowles leaves not only very large shoes to fill, but will leave an indelible mark on the colleagues and legislators who have had the good fortune to work by his side. By virtue of his numerous years of devoted service to the Rhode Island General Assembly and the citizens of the Ocean State, he serves as an inspiration and a role model of conscientious civic service and is eminently worthy of our recognition and praise. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House of Representatives of the State of Rhode Island hereby congratulates the Honorable Charles Knowles for his many years of honorable and distinguished service to our state as a state representative and legal counsel for the Rhode Island House of Representatives, and for his 30 years of loyal and meritorious military service to our nation. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to the Honorable Charles Knowles.
Thank you, Clerk. Please leave on the desk for signatures. Chairman Azanaro.
Thank you, Speaker. Just a couple of words about Colonel Knowles, who I had the honor of having him as my legal counsel in Veterans Affairs Committee. And when he first came on board, which was 4 years ago, maybe, roughly 4 years ago, I didn't know what to expect. But I'll tell you what, when Charlie gave his notes of that meeting, you knew exactly what went on there. And I was amazed at his astute knowledge of everything that we did at that Veterans Affairs Committee meeting. So, Colonel, Godspeed. Wish you the best. Always been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Solomon, please.
Charlie, I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you did up here. All those late nights that you were up here working on bills. You know, that not everybody sees all the work that you've done. You know, you'd sit up here late nights till 10 o'clock, 11, 12 o'clock working on bills, and just did an amazing job. You know, you never sugarcoated it. You always said it the way it was, and I always appreciated all the advice that you gave me up here. The talks that we had is very influential on all of us up here, and I want to thank you, Colonel, for your service, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Thank you. Representative Tienzi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two requests, an introduction and a resolution for immediate consideration.
Do you have the consent of both the majority and minority leader?
I do.
Proceed on both, please.
Thank you. First, I would like to begin with an introduction. I have 3 guests with me today coming from Narragansett and South Kingstown. And one of them, the first one I'll begin with is, and if you could stand when I announce your name, and then I'll ask my colleagues to hold your applause until the end. The first is Donna Vignali. She is the president of the Wakefield Rotary Club. We have Margaret Johnson, who is a member of the Wakefield Rotary Club. And last but not least, we have Susan Cicilline Bonanno, who is a town council member, longtime person who has served on both the school committee and the town council in Narragansett, and a real champion on so many issues that are near and dear to my heart and those in South Kingstown as well, or Narragansett as well. And I will say that Susan is here today because of the second thing that I have asked for, which is the immediate consideration, the resolution. But first, let's welcome them to the House. Okay, and then the resolution I have today is for a constituent of mine who has turned 90 years old. It is amazing to me to know someone and then learn so much about them at a milestone like this. And I am here today to celebrate the birthday, the 90th birthday of Barbara DeSanto. Barbara is a mother to 6 children, 11 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. She went not only to Pembroke College at Brown when it was only for women. She then went on to graduate from the University of Rhode Island. Women oftentimes have their careers and their lives interrupted by family, and I really admire her for taking the initiative to go back to school after raising her children or during raising her children. She served our state in many different ways, and the first way was as a probation counselor for the state. And I think that that really primed her for the next avenue that she chose, which was to work at the State House with us. She worked as a she worked in legislative council, and she went on in her years of service here to become the chief of the Office of Legislative Research. So her family enjoys having her around. She's an avid puzzle person, another thing that I admire about her. And I just want to say happy birthday. I know she couldn't make it today, but I want to make sure that she's at home celebrating. And as the House, I'd like to just congratulate her on 90 years and for all of her service to our state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Happy 90th birthday, Barbara. We wish you many more. Ladies, welcome. Councilwoman, welcome to the House floor. It's always a pleasure. As much as I love you, I will tell you that you are my second favorite Cicilline after Roberta. And we all love Roberta here, so that's not bad company. So thank you very much. Chairman McNamara, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request?
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to respectfully request that we adjourn in the memory of Stephen Nardelli Sr. I also have a resolution with the agreement of the majority and minority leader. I'd like to just say a few words.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, Steve Nardelli Sr. was married to Jane Headley, the father of Marissa and Steve Nardelli Jr. And Steve was so proud of both of his adult children, Mr. Speaker. They both got the coaching gene from him and were tremendous coaches and are involved in coaching. He was also the stepfather of Matthew and Rachel McEntee, had many grandchildren. But, Mr. Speaker, we know him here at the State House for advocating for students in Rhode Island. As a former phys ed teacher in Smithfield and hockey coach, he knew and cared about the students of the state of Rhode Island. He went on to work for the Rhode Island Department of Education and was an advocate for many of the bills that improved education for all of the students in Rhode Island. He also was the executive director of the League for Charter Schools and worked for Advocacy Solutions. He was a wonderful individual, always respectful to legislators and staff. And Mr. Speaker, he never forgot the fact that at heart he was a teacher and coach, and he always put the students of Rhode Island first. And for that, our state and the students will be eternally grateful. And again, I ask that we adjourn in his memory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Our condolences to the whole Nardelli family. I echo many of the things you said. He was a fine person, and we'll be sorely missed by everybody. Chairman Craven, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the permission of the House Majority and Minority Leader, I have a resolution requesting immediate consideration.
Proceed.
Thank you. Those of us who remember the former Chief of Staff under Speaker Mattiello, a fellow named Leo Skenyon, most of us know him here. His mom passed away earlier this year in the summertime, 103 years old, which I found amazing to talk to someone who actually lived in a time before my parents were even born. But she was a wonderful woman, lived an incredibly interesting life as a teacher, as an administrator, and lived in North Providence. Her husband died. She moved to Narragansett, took the whole family here. Just a great person to learn a little bit about life from. And she was cognizant and in great shape, and no small reason was that her son was as dutiful a son as I have ever seen in my life. He took care of his mom, lived with her for the last 12, 15 years of her life. So I would like to have us all join in sending something to Leo and his family, but memorializing the fact that Mrs. Skenyon not only had a great son and another son and a daughter, but that she lived the life that she lived, the life that all of us would hope we could live someday, and thank her for, I could speak for myself, thank her for doing some of the kindest things I've ever seen someone do for me. And so I'd like us to consider this and leave it on the desk for further signatures, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I knew Mrs. Skenyon. I knew her for many years. She was an incredibly talented, bright woman, full of kindness and love. And I know that she had a profound effect on all of her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. And I would occasionally get a text or even a tap on the shoulder from Leo when I was Majority Leader and said, "My mom says you need to fix your tie. My mom says you need to get a haircut," or whatever it was. And it was always, and 99% of the time, it was all good. And it was always from kindness and from love, and that's just the kind of person she was. So, Leo, our condolences to you, your brother Jack, your sister Eleanor, and your whole family. And know we at the House share in your loss. Thank you, Chairman. Very well said. Chairman Corvese, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I have a resolution for condolences, which I would like to pass by immediate consideration with the permission of the Majority Leader and the Minority Leader.
Proceed.
And I would like it left on the desk for signatures. This is a condolence on the passing of Sharon Baptista. Sharon Baptista is the mother of Peter Baptista, who I'm sure you've seen in these halls, who's an absolutely fine young man, a wonderful person, and the apple didn't fall far from the tree. His mother was a wonderful person, a wonderful mother. She enjoyed her pets, she enjoyed her traveling, and she will be greatly missed by her loving family and her friends and those around her. And I would like to submit this for to be read at the rise and also to be left on the table on the desk for signatures. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Kovesi. Our condolences to Peter and his family. I know he loved his mother very much, and I know the passing is never easy, particularly the last several months of her life. So God bless her and that she's in peace right now. Representative Mazakowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, as well as the permission from the majority and minority leader, I have a House resolution for immediate consideration noting the passing of Jeanette Chenevier. And if I may have a moment to say a few words.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise not just to mourn the loss of Jeanette, but to also celebrate the life of this remarkable 100-year-old individual and the legacy she leaves behind. Part of that legacy includes her own son, David, daughter-in-law, Claire, grandchildren, Mike and Laura, and two great-grandchildren, Paxton and Kenson. Many of us know her son, David Chenevier, in his role for representing the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association within these halls. So if you see him, pass on your condolences. It is often said that we are judged by what and who we leave behind, and I can confidently say David and his family are giving Jeanette a legacy to be proud of.
Should be right on top.
I request that this be left on the desk for additional signatures and be read at the rise, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David, I know you're watching, and our condolences to you and your family. Never easy to lose anybody, but especially your mother. Chairman Azzanaro, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I have a House resolution for immediate consideration, and I have the permission of the majority and minority leader expressing condolences on the passing of Joseph Kirby of Westerly. And I'd just like to say a couple of words, if I may.
Please proceed.
Joe Kirby, to a surprise to me, was born in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And after graduating college, he joined the Army. After the Army, he completed his Army obligation. He went to work for the Fiduciary Trust Company of Boston, and later accepted a position with the Washington Trust Company in Westerly. Mr. Kirby worked at the Washington Trust Company for over 30 years, where he became the president of the Washington Trust Company. He will always be remembered, and he will surely be missed. He was involved in so many things in Westerly, I couldn't write them all down, but he was just a wonderful person, and we surely are going to miss him in the town of Westerly. I'd like this to be read at the rise and can leave on the desk for signatures, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Our condolences to the Kirby family. Whip Kazarian, please. Just a minute, Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for adjournment.
Proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to adjourn today in memory of Sarah Arzumanian. Sarah passed away last Thursday, December 28th, at the age of 89. Sarah was a cook at both North Providence High School and at Pembroke College, but to me, Sarah was best known as our Sunday school teacher at St. Sahagan Messerub Church. She was an active member of our church. She also cooked and was part of Women's Guild, but everybody remembers her best for her smiling face and her warm attitude. She leaves behind her son Lenny and his wife Andrea, her son John and his wife Diane, and her 7 grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Floor Manager Edwards, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Adjournment request.
Proceed.
I'd like to have the House adjourn today in the memory of Cecil Leonard. He was a longtime volunteer in the town of Tiverton. He served for 3 terms as on our budget committee. He served 2 terms as an elected treasurer, and he also served 3 terms as a town council member. I knew Cecil fairly well, and he had a great mind for finances, and he brought that skill to everything he did for the benefit of Tiverton. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Floor Manager. Chairwoman Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for announcement.
Proceed.
Today, we celebrating a birthday for one of the greatest speakers of the House. I want to congratulate Speaker Bill Murphy for his birthday. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Congratulations, Speaker. Chairwoman Bella Wilkinson, please.
Request for an announcement, request an adjournment, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise today to commemorate the life of Dolores Casey Bergeron, a daughter of Rhode Island for 91 exceptional years. Dolores had a voracious appetite for life. She was a freelance journalist, a competition-winning poker player, campaign manager for numerous political campaigns in the state at the federal, local, and state levels, a baseball pitcher and an advocate for multiple communities, including the indigenous, unions, public safety officers, senior citizens, military veterans, and tourism. She was an avid sports enthusiast who followed both professional and college basketball, baseball, and football. She also loved attending the fights and MMA at Twin Rivers. As a young woman, Dolores played on a professional women's baseball team. Despite her small stature, she had a cannon for a pitcher's arm. When her brother fell sick during his team's most important game, his teammates pressed Dolores into dressing in his uniform and pitching in his place. She was so effective, her brother spent the remainder of his baseball career in her shadow. Dolores understood and lived the life of women's liberation long before it was a coined phrase by the media. Speaker, I request we adjourn in memory of Dolores Casey Bergeron, a phenomenal woman I had the honor to know, to work with, and to love.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I know Dolores, you also went by the name of DB, and she will sorely be missed. A fine human being. Representative O'Brien, please.
Thank you, Speaker. Adjournment.
Proceed.
Thank you. My good friend Ray Degnan passed away on Christmas Eve of last month, and he always had a joke on his lips, and he always was there to help all his friends. So I just he was a master plumber. He would always come over in the middle of the night if he had to help you out, to get your heat back on, or anything. He would do it for everybody, and he did it thousands of times. And he was just a fantastic human being, and he's going to be missed. And my prayers and heart go out to his wife, Sue, and his entire family. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Representative. Our condolences. Chairwoman Fogarty.
3 announcements, Speaker.
Proceed.
2 are condolences for Robert Buddy Cavallaro. He was only 34 years old. He passed away last month. He was Michelle Brusso, one of our school committee, long-term school committee members in South Kingstown. Her son, he attended Rhode Island Public School, Public School in South Kingstown and URI, and then the Porter Chester Institute in Massachusetts. He was a licensed journeyman and electrician until he passed away at a very early age last month. So my condolences to Michelle and the rest of her family and her daughters on Buddy Cavallaro's, Bobby Cavallaro's passing. Also, I'd like to remember Daniel Allen, my very dear friend, Nancy Santucci's brother, who passed away 2 months ago, who left his wife, Ruthie, who was just totally heartbroken over the loss of her husband. Danny was a guy's guy. He was a Teamster for the local 251, just a great, great guy who everybody loved. He leaves his other brother, Kevin Allen, and his nieces and nephews, Alan, Julia, and Olivia Santucci. And then on a happier note, Speaker, Carolyn Parente, one of my neighbors in South Kingstown, will be competing next week as Miss Rhode Island in the Miss USA pageant. She is a Brown University graduate, and so I hope and I wish her the best of luck next week in competing. I want to try to get her up here, but her schedule, she's a very, very busy young woman. And we'll hopefully get to see her after the pageant next week, but we wish her the best of luck representing Rhode Island. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Representative Tansey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have one more announcement. I just wanted to take an opportunity to wish a very happy birthday to my best friend and the greatest friend in the entire world, Catherine Abbott. Her birthday is this Saturday, and I'm wearing a gray ribbon today in honor of Catherine, who is undergoing a battle with brain cancer, and she has been just such a brave individual going through this. It's an impossible disease, and I'm so incredibly proud of her, and I just wanted to share in the joy of a birthday that we'll be celebrating with her on Saturday. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and happy birthday, Catherine.
Thank you. We wish her to get well, best wishes, and happy birthday to her. Leader Blazajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Announcement, please.
Just a moment.
Thank you, Speaker. Our next session will be Tuesday, January 9th at 4 p.m. And next week, we will also be meeting on Wednesday, January 10th at 4 o'clock. We will not have session next Thursday. For the following week, and please keep this in mind, on Tuesday, January 16th, we will be meeting at 5 p.m. because on that date is the date of the governor's State of the State address, which will happen at 7. So we're meeting at 5, 1 hour later than usual, so that we can complete session, and then Governor Key will be delivering his State of the State address here at 7 o'clock in a joint session with the Senate in this chamber. At the Rise today, as I mentioned yesterday, a photographer will be available to take our photos with the Independent Man at the Smith Street entrance on the first floor. The Independent Man will be moving on Monday to North Main Street Armory for several months of refurbishment before being brought back atop the dome. So please, right after session, head down to the Independent Man, and we will all take a group photo together in front of it. Also, there will be a photographer in the House Lounge at the Rise in order to take new official photographs, if you'd like, after we do the photo down on the first floor. Next Wednesday, January 10th, and please mark this in your calendars, Attorney Caroline Thibault will lead 2 sessions of sexual harassment prevention training for House members at 3 p.m. and again at the Rise, both in the House Lounge. Speaker Shekarchi and I strongly encourage you to attend one of those sessions. Please share with your constituents that on next Wednesday, January 10th, at the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, they'll be hosting a taxpayer assistance event from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Alger Hall at the Rhode Island College campus. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to note, and it was Rep. Speakman that noticed this, and I want to pass along to everyone, Rep. Shawcross Smith and her business, Dr. Daycare, was recognized by Rhode Island Monthly as a business that inspires philanthropy among their employees. And I think there's nothing better for a leader than to inspire philanthropy with the people they work with. So Representative Shawcross Smith, congratulations.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. Representative Shawcross Smith, thank you for inspiring all of us, too. Representative Knight, please.
Can we go back to new business, please?
I was just going to do that. New business. Last call for new business today. All right. Representative Newberry with new business. Representative Potter with new business. Representative Cruz with new business. Representative Roberts with new business. Floor Manager Edwards with new business. Chairwoman Diaz. Representative Slater with new business. Representative Kislak with new business. Representative Knight with new business. Chairwoman Fogarty with new business. Any other new business on the left side of the room? All right. New business is done for the day. We'll have to pick it up again on Tuesday. I have a House resolution by myself and several others congratulating the Honorable Charles Knowles on his retirement after more than 30 years of dedicated distinguished service to the citizens of Rhode Island. I have a House resolution from Representative Tanzi honoring and recognizing Barbara DeSanto on a joyous occasion of her 90th birthday. I have a House resolution by Chairman McNamara expressing the deepest condolences on the passing of Stephen Nardelli. Chairman Craven brings us a resolution extending the deepest condolences on the passing of Eleanor Skenyon. I have Representative Mazakowski offering a resolution extending the deepest condolences on the passing of Jeanette Chenevier, excuse me. Bad handwriting. I have a House resolution by Chairman Corvese expressing condolences on the passing of Sharon Baptista. And I have a House resolution expressing condolences on the passing of Joseph Kirby by Chairman Azanaro. Thank you. Yes. Is there any objection to transmitting all matters on the clerk's desk to His Excellency the Governor, the Honorable Senate, or the Secretary of forthwith? Hearing none, so ordered. I voted for the resolution. All in favor, say aye. Did I do that? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude momentarily. I'm going to ask you to leave the chamber from the front of the rostrum and not the back. There's a situation there, and the person's requiring some medical attention, and we don't want to all exit at one time. So I'll just ask you to please leave from each side of the front of the entrance. For adjournments, I have House adjourns in the memory of Raymond Degnan, Dolores Bergeron, Kenneth Shorten, Cecile Leonard, Sarah Azarmanian, Steve Nardelli, Eleanor Skenyon, Sharon Batista, Jeanette Chenevier, Joseph Kirby, Bobby Cavallaro, and Daniel Allen. Leader Blazajewski moves that, seconded by Leader Chippendale. All those in favor, please stand for a moment of silence. The House is adjourned. The desk shall remain open. Please exit toward the front.
House resolution honoring and recognizing Barbara J. DeSanto on the joyous occasion of her 90th birthday. Whereas Barbara J. DeSanto was born December 27, 1933 in the city of Providence, oldest of 4 children born to Lucia and John Cicilline. And whereas a brilliant student, Barbara graduated with high honors from Mount Pleasant High School in Providence, where she earned the Anthony Medal and won acceptance to Pembroke College at Brown University. And whereas Barbara chose to interrupt her educational aspirations in order to marry and start a family, she later returned to academia, earning her baccalaureate degree from the University of Rhode Island. And whereas Barbara has always been a devoted mother to her 6 children, Michael, Kevin, David, Terry, Jerry Ann, and Peter. Sadly, she recently faced the loss of 2 of her children, Terry and Jerry Ann. And whereas in addition to raising her family, Barbara was employed at the New England Telephone Company in her younger years. She later began a long and efficacious career with the state of Rhode Island, first as a probation counselor and subsequently as a researcher for the General Assembly's Office of Legislative Counsel, where through talent and diligence, she rose to the position of Chief of the Office of Legislative Research. And whereas during her tenure in legislative research, Barbara was responsible for assisting in the crafting of hundreds of pieces of legislation that would eventually become Rhode Island law. And whereas Barbara is a devout Catholic and a person who truly embraces the principles of justice and equality, she genuinely cares about the well-being of others and is a kind, patient, understanding, and thoughtful woman who is eminently deserving of our recognition and praise. Now, therefore, be it resolved, this House of Representatives hereby recognizes and congratulates Barbara J. DeSanto on the joyous occasion of her 90th birthday, and moreover, offers her our gratitude for her outstanding citizenship and service to the people of our state. Be it further resolved, the Secretary of State, being hereby is authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to Barbara J. DeSanto. House Resolution extending deepest condolences on the passing of Eleanor M. Skenyon. Whereas it is with sadness this House of Representatives has learned of the passing of Eleanor M. Skenyon, beloved wife of John Skenyon, and cherished mother of John Skenyon, our friend and former House Representatives Chief of Staff Leo Skenyon, and her daughter Mary Ellen. And whereas Mrs. Skenyon was born in Tignish, Prince Edward Island, Canada, to Francis and Mary Barbara Gaudette, the fifth of 6 children, which include her siblings Gus, Ang, Joe, Emmeline, and Alma. As a young girl, her family moved to Rhode Island, where she graduated from Holy Name School and St. Xavier's Academy. And whereas upon graduation from high school, Mrs. Skenyon had been recruited for a position as a commercial artist because of her artistic talents, but chose to attend Rhode Island College, where she had been awarded a scholarship and became an elementary school teacher. She subsequently became a supervisor in the Providence school system and continued her education, earning a master's degree in education. Her career in education culminated with several years as the vice principal of the Henry Barnard School attached to Rhode Island College. And whereas above all else in her life, Mrs. Skenyon was devoted to her family. Upon marrying her husband John in 1943, the couple made their home in Providence, and together they started their family, eventually moving to North Providence, where her husband sadly passed in 1969. In the early 1990s, she moved to Narragansett, where she found comfort, peace, and fulfillment living by the ocean. And whereas never one to remain idle, after retiring, Mrs. Skenyon, a fellow teacher, owned and operated the Teacher's Room, a charming school supply store in Johnston. She also resumed her painting and drawing, creating wonderful watercolors, seascapes, and scenes of the Narragansett area, which were featured in numerous exhibits, including several shows presented by the South County Art Association in Kingston. Throughout her life, she had been a devout Catholic and was a devoted communicant of St. Veronica's Chapel in Narragansett for many decades. And whereas, in addition to her children, Mrs. Skenyon is survived by her daughter-in-law, Margaret, her beloved grandchildren, Stephanie, Matthew, and Heather Skenyon, and Heather's daughter, great-granddaughter, Addison Guthrie, Justin Skenyon, Caitlin Terwilliger, and her husband, Ed, and their daughter, great-granddaughter, Sophie Terwilliger, and Daniel, Tatiana, Markian, and Alexander Martinets, as well as many loving nieces and nephews. She was predeceased by her son-in-law, Myron Martinets, and her nephew, Charles Sweeney. And whereas Eleanor Skenyon was blessed with a long and glorious life that spanned more than 103 active and joyous years, surrounded by a loving family and many friends, and she will be dearly missed by all. Now, therefore, be it resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby extends deepest condolences and sympathy to the family and friends of Eleanor M. Skenyon. And be it further resolved, the Secretary of State, being hereby is authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to John Skenyon and family, Leo Skenyon and family, and Mary Ellen Martinets and family.
House Resolution expressing deepest condolences on the passing of Stephen Nardelli Sr. Whereas it is with deep sadness that this House has learned of the passing of Stephen Nardelli Sr. of Wakefield, the beloved husband of Jane Headley. And whereas Mr. Nardelli was the son of the late Dante and Guinevere Nardelli. He graduated from LaSalle Academy and received a bachelor's degree from the University of Rhode Island and a master's degree from Providence College. And whereas Mr. Nardelli is best remembered by the Smithfield community for his many years of distinguished and exemplary service as a physical education teacher, he inspired his students to get physically active and get moving, particularly with the chicken fat game. He excelled as a coach of the hockey team and was a great friend to countless students, making a positive difference in all of their lives. Whereas, after retiring from the Smithfield Public School Department, Mr. Nardelli worked for numerous years at the Rhode Island Department of Education. He also served the community as Executive Director of the Rhode Island League of Charter Schools and worked as a lobbyist for Advocacy Solutions in the Sargent Center. And whereas in his free time, Mr. Nardelli enjoyed spending time at the beach, dancing and playing hockey with the Rhodey Oldies. He will long be remembered for his big personality, infectious laugh, being someone everyone wanted to socialize with, and for the joy and laughter he created at a local Steve Smith and the Naked Show by singing Mustang Sally on stage. He was a devoted husband and father who always put his family first in his life. And whereas, in addition to his wife Jane Headley, Mr. Nardelli leaves behind his children Marissa Nardelli, Stephen Nardelli Jr., and his wife Jennifer Nardelli. He was the stepfather of Matthew and Rachel McEntee. He also leaves behind his grandchildren, Stephen III, Sienna and Sophia Nardelli, and Jack, Ryan, Adam, and Owen McEntee. He is also survived by his sister Kathleen Nardelli and his brother Dante Nardelli. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House of Representatives hereby expresses its condolences on the passing of Stephen Nardelli Sr., and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to Jane Headley and family. House Resolution expressing condolences on the passing of Sharon Baptista. Whereas it is with deep sadness that this House has learned of the passing of Sharon Baptista and the beloved wife of the late Ernest Baptista, Jr. She was raised in the Forest Hills neighborhood of Cranston, a daughter of the late Anthony and Jenny Williams. She always expressed fond memories of the fun, joy, and solace she had experienced as a child at her family's beach house in Narragansett. And whereas a proud graduate of Cranston High School East in 1970, Mrs. Baptista proceeded to graduate from the University of Rhode Island in 1974, and upon graduation worked for the Public Affairs Department for the Automobile Association of America, before meeting her husband Ernest and transitioning into a role as a stay-at-home mother, where she worked tirelessly to create a wonderfully loving, nurturing, and educational home for her family. And whereas, in addition to raising her family, Mrs. Baptista enjoyed traveling, especially to her beloved Bermuda, and exploring new destinations, making memories with her family that lasted a lifetime. She also had an enduring love and passion for animals, from her cherished childhood pet poodle Sherry to her Shih Tzu companions Casey and Chloe, and her grand dog Sadie. And whereas Sharon Baptista is survived by her daughter Jennifer Baptista, her son Peter Baptista, and his wife Cara Beth Baptista, her sisters Patricia Troiano and Judith Passante, and her husband Alan. She also leaves behind her brother-in-law Raymond Baptista and his partner Danielle Amirelli, as well as her extended family and many friends. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House of Representatives of the State of Rhode Island hereby expresses its condolences on the passing of Sharon Baptista, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit duly certified copies of this resolution to Jennifer Baptista and Peter Baptista. Yep, you got it. House Resolution expressing condolences on the passing of Joseph J. Kirby.
Whereas it is with deep sadness this House has learned of the passing of Joseph J. Kirby, beloved husband of Catherine Hoxie. And whereas Mr. Kirby was born in Woonsocket, son of the late Charles and Genevieve Kirby. He was a graduate of the College of the Holy Cross and New England College of Law. After college, he served our nation with honor and distinction as a member of the United States Army. And whereas after completing his military service obligations, Mr. Kirby went to work for the Fiduciary Trust Company of Boston, later accepted a position with the Washington Trust Company as an investment officer, at which time he moved his family to Westerly. And whereas Mr. Kirby worked for the Washington Trust Company for more than 3 decades, and thanks to his tireless work ethic, abiding integrity, and stellar business acumen, he steadily rose through the ranks, eventually serving as the company's president, chairman, and chief executive officer. He played a significant role in the successful capital campaigns of the Westerly Hospital, Westerly Library, Ocean Community YMCA, the United Way, and Catholic Charities. He also chaired the campaigns for South County Community Action and the YMCA 1993 campaign. He continued to serve the Washington Trust Company and the wider community in retirement as a member of the bank, serving on its finance and executive committees. And whereas Mr. Kirby was always active in community and civic affairs, gave much of his time in support of numerous charitable organizations. He served on the Westerly Hospital Board of Trustees for 17 years and was a board member of the Westerly Library, Wilcox Park, Narragansett Electric, and the New England Bank Card Association. In addition, he donated his time and many talents in support of the chorus for Westerly's Summer Pops concert and helped to establish Westerly Downtown Task Force. He was a member of the Rhode Island and American Bankers Associations, the Rhode Island Commodores, and Westerly Yacht Club. And true to his Irish roots, he's a longtime member and past president of the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick. And whereas in his retirement, Mr. Kirby became a passionate golfer, taking many golfing vacations, and was a member of the Stonington Country Club. He was also a passionate sports fan who diligently followed all of the Boston teams and enjoyed swimming, and was a member of the Seaside Beach Club. And whereas Mr. Kirby was a man of deep faith, he was a communicant of St. Pius X Church and served numerous parish ministries and committees. He also coached the church's CYO basketball team. Foremost in Mr. Kirby's life was always his family, and he was at all times a devoted and loving husband and father. And whereas in addition to his wife Catherine, Mr. Kirby leaves behind his children, Kathleen Kulig and her husband Robert, Michael Kirby and his wife Sharon, and Ann Kirby. He also leaves behind his grandchildren, Kyle and Megan Kirby, and his wife Catherine's children, Kenyon Murphy and his wife Karen, and Catherine Gardner and her husband Bryant. Mr. Kirby was also the stepfather to Cole and Cooper Murphy, and leaves behind several nieces and nephews. He was predeceased by his first wife, Lillian Kirby, and his siblings, Charles and Paul Kirby, and Ann Hope Kirby Overmeyer. Now, therefore, be resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby expresses its deepest condolences on the passing of Joseph J. Kirby. And be it further resolved, the Secretary of State being hereby is authorized and directed to transmit duly certified copies of this resolution to Catherine Hoxie, Kathleen Kulig, Michael Kirby, and Ann Kirby. House resolution extending deepest condolences on the passing of Jeanette V. Chenevert. Whereas it is with sadness this House has learned of the passing of Jeanette V. Chenevert, the devoted wife of Oma Chenevert for 71 years, and the cherished mother of one son, David Chenevert, and his wife Claire. And whereas Mrs. Chenevert was born during the Great Depression and grew up in the city of Woonsocket. She was a daughter of the late Joseph and Blanche Beauregard and the sister of the late Florence Smith, Stella Rush, Rachel Cody, Norman Beauregard, Leo Beauregard, and Muriel Santos. And whereas the family's first home was along the Blackstone River, And because money was so scarce during her early years, Mrs. Chenevert and her dad would go fishing for snapping turtles to make turtle soup. During her youth, the family moved often, spending a number of years in Central Falls and later residing in Cumberland, where she and her husband raised their son. Once he was grown and she and her husband had retired, they moved to West Palm Beach in Florida, but returned to Rhode Island whenever they became grandparents. And whereas Mrs. Chenevert doted on her family, particularly her grandson, Michael Chenevert, and his wife, Kristen, her granddaughter, Laura Chenevert, and her fiancé, Alan Kennedy, her two great-grandchildren, Paxton and Kaysen. She also loved her Beagle Mix companion, Snoopy. And whereas during the 1940s, Mrs. Chenevert was employed as a bookkeeper for the family-run business, P&C Quality Screw Products, for many years. In addition, she held myriad jobs, including waitressing at Howard Johnson's. In her spare time, she loved gardening and competing with her neighbors over who could grow the biggest tomato. She also enjoyed playing tennis, reading, and was an avid sewer who made all of her clothes by hand for many years. And whereas longevity ran in Mrs. Chenevert's family, her father lived to be 110 years old, and Jeanette had celebrated her 100th birthday on August 6th of 2023. She had maintained that, quote, a single glass of dews in the evening, unquote, was her secret to a long life. She will always be remembered for her outgoing personality, her drive to get things done, and her love for her family, and she will be dearly missed. Now, therefore, be resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby expresses deepest sympathies on the passing of Jeanette V. Chenevert. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State being hereby is authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to David Chenevert and family.